What are your expectations for this group this season?
You know what? I remember 03, 04, and 15, 16. I have the same feeling, and I'm kind of excited about seeing all these young guys. And we didn't have a development camp for what, 2-3 years. So to spend the time with those guys was kind of exciting. And then to see the guys at the rookie tournament, which we hadn't done in several years again. But it reminds me of those years. We've got some quality veterans. I think we've got 10 guys that are candidates to play in the Olympic team, and we've got a bunch of young guys that are just, I think, chomping at the bit. And that seems to bring some juice and energy to everybody. So I think on that side of it, and watching the kids interact with the veterans and have the veterans come up to me and talk about the young kids reveals a lot about them.
You've obviously used the word reset, so is it fair to assume that going into this season, you're still going to, you're not going to trade your first round pick in 2022, you're not going to trade any young assets for guys that would help in the short term, you're going to just let this play out and hope that some of the young guys in the system right now can come up and fill some spots?
Well, there'll be a lot of competition, and when you say young guys, there's guys that we've drafted, right? So, as I said, we've added 36 players the last 18 months. 30 of those 36 are under the age of 25, but you've got guys like the Balsers, the Barabanovs, the Leonards, the Gregors. So these are guys that are not just recently drafted. And you've got the Eklunds and the Weisblots and Robbins and players like that. So I think there's a layer of competition of guys that are not just recently drafted, that have been waiting for this opportunity. And you never say never. You say, you wouldn't trade your first round pick. We were pretty adamant about that last year. You never know. You never know what comes available to you. If it was a young player that fit for now and the future, you certainly listen and explore those things. Absolutely.
Can you say, is the team fully vaccinated right now, or will they be by the
We are completely compliant with the NHL protocols and the state and county protocols. Staff also. So we're in a good position going forward. Which. Let's be honest, the last year and a half has been quite a journey and a challenge for this group. The things they went through last year, I look back and really proud of not just the big club, but the Barracuda. Some things they had to deal with that nobody else did, and everybody in society had a challenging year and a half. So you know that it magnifies some of the things that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It reminds me, remember a few years ago we brought in Joel Ward and Paulie Martin, and Jonesy came at the same time. I think when you add people like that, it gives you a couple things. It gives you a fresh perspective and also the leadership background. They make your group better. They can share some thoughts on how to manage certain situations. But they also, it's interesting, when I talk to them, they said, geez, we really like your guys. They give you I remember when Paul Martin came in and started talking about some of our guys, it was the same type of conversation I had with Nicky Bonino and Cogs. Like, these guys can play. And so I think that helps on both fronts. I do. Well, it's not ideal, but there is an ongoing investigation from the NHL, and we released our statement yesterday that the focus has to be on our group here, the guys that are here today, and the things that we can control, but also respect the process of going through dealing with some very serious allegations and some things that need to be addressed with the right process.
Do you want Evander Kane to play for the Sharks?
So I couldn't.
Do you want Evander Kane to play for the Sharks?
Well, I think when you've got to give the process of the investigation going forward to give you all the information. I mean, you don't make when you're making a decision of any nature, you want to have as much information as possible, and that's I think that's the situation where we're at right now, and try and take away the distraction of the focus of starting training camp, which is why we're in the position we are today.
Going back to last year, Bob mentioned that needing to hold the line on some players. Of course, there are reports that the players want to do about Evander. Any, I guess, thing you learned from how things were handled last year, that have been handled better last year, whatever happened last year?
Yeah, we talk about the whole group, and Boogie and I did have a conversation about that. And again, you go into last season, again, was different. I mean, some of the rules were even adjusted because of COVID protocols. The meals were not, they were grab and goes. Players certainly asked for an altered dress code with sweatsuits and things like that. There's no doubt when you have team rules, they have to be enforced by the head coach and by the general manager. And I think we've all established the fact that, it's as we return, knock on wood, to some level of normalcy, that it allows you to have complete clarity on what's acceptable and what's not, and that applies to everybody.
How long do you expect, have you got any indication from the league how long this investigation might last?
We don't on the timeline, no.
If Evander has to miss time in the regular season, does this team have to find a way to play the way that how do you kind of see things as far as if Evander has to sit out some games at the start of the regular season, does this team have to kind of find a way to
Well, I'm not going to assume anything. Again, we'll let the investigation take its course. But I think your other question is, how do we play? And the opportunity that comes. I mean, you take a look. There's a lot of teams around the league that don't have all their players. That guys that are up. People have to step up. And I think what's exciting about our group, when you take a look at the things that we needed to fill, irregardless of anything, we changed our goaltending. We really strengthened down the middle. If you take a look at our team, where you have Logan and Tommy Hurdle and Nicky Bonino down the middle, and we'll have a battle for the 4C spot. I think integrating younger players in the wing position is an easier thing to do. You take a look historically around the league, and I think we've got a bunch of guys, not just younger players, but guys that we had for a short period of time, like Rudy Balcers and Barabanov, that I think performed pretty well. And I like how we're set up to play. The speed, skill. You've got to have guys that can help shut down situations too. And you've got a Cogs and a Matty Nieto and Nick Bonino. I think you can take off some of the hard minutes and really tough zone starts that maybe a Logan and Tommy Hurdle had to deal with last year. And there was a period last year we played pretty well. The first 20 games with all this stuff we had to deal with, I'm not even sure I evaluated our team, but games 21 through 41, we played really well. And then I think we ran out of gas. And part of that's on me, because I said I wouldn't move the first round pick or add pieces, where I think there was just a lot of hockey played by Tommy and Logan. And if we'd had a Nicky Bonino then, I think that probably would have helped our team quite a bit.
Logan said he burnt out in the other semester physically. Callahan said to come back and
He looks great, and I think he's always so honest. I mean, he played so well at games 21 through 41. He really did. He was outstanding, but you could see that he hit a wall. And as I say, I take responsibility, because if I could have brought in, as I say, a Nicky Bonino type guy, I'm sure that would have taken the workload off him. And that first couple of months, I'll never forget walking into a hotel, and I think it was in Colorado, and I'm looking at a team that was just mentally beat up, and I'm not playing, and I'm feeling the same way. And it was just not an excuse, just a reality of what we had to deal with last year, being away from home as long as we did, having all those road games. And it's not a sympathy thing, because everybody in society had to deal with things that we've never dealt with before. But watching our guys and knowing our guys, it really took its toll and drained, I think, on the guys later in the year.
Doug, Bob mentioned that Carlson and Vlasic maybe came back. Carlson was here all summer, and Vlasic came back as early as he's ever been. Was the message from the organization that both those guys are over the age of 30 now? Did they have to change their training routine at all in the off season, and how could that help them going into this season?
Well, I think it's interesting. Like Eric's 31 years of age. He's the same age as a Peter Angelo or a Yossi or Edmund and guys like that. I think he's extremely healthy. His commitment to being here all year and training, not just for himself, but for his teammates too. I think he's going to have a really good year. I do. And Mark Edward, I think he would be the first to admit that, again, whether there was lack of ice time opportunity for him back in Quebec during the pandemic and things like that, he didn't really get back, I think, on top of his game till later in the year, and he showed, certainly what he's capable of. He's certainly committed and altered his training. I know Mike Potenza worked with him with some speed work and everything, and it's like, Mark is 34 years of age. He's been healthy all his career. There's no reason why he can't, I think, just reset his game. But yes, and there's a history of players that have had to change their training as they got to a certain age. And he loves the game of hockey. And I'm expecting big things from Mark Edward.
When you mentioned in your exit interview about Mark Edward that maybe last year his conditioning wasn't great going into last year, so going to this year, do you see upward trend in that?
Yeah, when I say conditioning, I mean, he came in, I think, 8.5% body fat, so he's always committed to training. But I think the speed work and just the fact that maybe he didn't have the opportunity to skate as much. And if you take a look at all the teams that didn't go into the bubble, right? There were 7 teams that didn't go into the bubble. They missed the playoffs. Every one of those teams missed the playoffs again last year. And I think when you get out of your cycle of not training or having a different type of training thing, not getting to get into your routine, so it's not a blame game, it's just a reality. And I think when you identify this is what I got to work on to get back, we've had quite a few players that have kind of reestablished their games as they got a little older by altering either nutrition or training or whatever it may be. And I think Mark Edward put the work in.
Also, came out a couple weeks ago and sounded disappointed. There has to be a contract discussion on the Sharks until this point. From your perspective, is there a balance there? Like, you've got already a lot of players on long-term deals here, tied up in the next 5 years. Is there a hesitancy to maybe do that again? As valuable as Moss is, I'm sure he's going to want to turn over his contract. Is there some hesitancy on your part to maybe go down that road again? We have another player on the books for
But one thing I don't talk about is speculation, and it's not, again, criticizing anybody whether things are accurate or not, but I've had several conversations with his agent. And when you have conversations with agents, they're always kept in confidence, the rhythm of a negotiation, the time and place of it. Tomasz knows how we feel about him. So I'll leave it at that I have talked to his agent several times. Tomasz and I are going to talk for the next little while, and it will be kept in confidence between the two of us. But I think everybody knows how we feel about him.
I guess there's maybe some, if you look at the history of what we've done as far as extending guys for their last contract, it's like guys like Mark Edward, Willoughby. I guess from his perspective, maybe is he saying, why are you not getting that same benefit?
I think that's a really valid question, except for the uniqueness of where we're at. I don't think anybody forecasted a pandemic would come into play, impact the cap the way it has. And every team has to deal with it. I mean, every team has to explore options to become compliant, whether it be buying players out or making decisions. And I think that's what makes this time unique. I mean, it impacted the cap in many ways, and the cap may stay flat. There's only so many players in this league, and yes, you try to be proactive and give guys contracts that satisfy their needs. But now you're in a window now that it's just different, and I think you try and explain that and say, well, let's try and find a solution, and that's what we're trying to do. You're trying to, it's also one of the reasons why integrating younger players in. We talked about this a year and a half ago that we want to replenish our system. I talked about the 36 players we've added, but it also gives you the ability in integrating younger players in that are on entry-level contracts. You get to benefit that, and it kind of gives you the blend and the ability to combine the economics to make it work going forward.
Can you say, or are you saying that it was like Thomas Hurdle here with the Sharks contract?
I love Tomasz Hurdle. It has to be one of those things that works for everybody, but we're dealing with some unique dynamics. And I will be, I'll be talking to Tomasz soon, and we'll go from there.
Do you have any question about how this might affect him on ice, just in these kind of discussions, going to UFA years or anything?
I think he answered it really eloquently. I mean, he's such a great kid, a great person. Free agency is a two-way street, and that's why you try and find something that works for everybody. But again, as Curtis asked, it's just a unique time that you're trying to, negotiate completely different than it was 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, and that makes it a bit of a challenge for everybody. But it doesn't mean you can't explore those solutions.
You mentioned that the 7 teams that didn't return to play during the COVID year all missed the playoffs last year. Why do you think that was, and why does that maybe give you confidence that this year a team like you guys who that did happen to could maybe have a different result?
I think it's really important that if you don't get back and you don't get to spend time, not only your players but your younger players, you get completely out of your cycle, and it's hockey players are truly creature of habit, but so are we as a team. We're so used to saying, okay, development camp is here, rookie tournament is here, training camp. Like, to not have any of those things, I think really messes up your cycle as a team. We've got young players that didn't play a game last year, right? Didn't play one game as an 18-year-old. For us to not have a development camp, and you see the progress of a player, look like Kanishov, right? He comes in and makes the team last year, but we saw him do a lot of things in the development camp, train, put on 20 pounds, and we kind of could say, we can see this kind of coming. We haven't been able to see that, much like those other 7 teams didn't. You lost a big period of time. And again, it's not a blame game. We wish we'd been able to get back together and get into that. But there was a lost window of our development, of our team building, even the details and style of play. And that's, when you go through that, you say, okay, let's address this. The quality of our development camp was really good. It's one of the best I've seen us have. The work that our coaches have put in has been phenomenal, both Bob's staff and Roy's staff, to try and catch up a little bit.
Going back the next couple weeks, preseason games, when you look at as far as readiness, being pro.
Well, he's a really, really mature kid, like off the ice, but when you take a look at his body, the strength in his legs is, for a kid his age, is amazing. We don't want to rush people. We don't want to hold them back, and you try and find that sweet spot. But again, I'll go back. If you're really strong down the middle, and you've got a Couture, you've got a Hurdle, a Bonino, I think you can integrate wingers probably easier than anybody else. So this isn't just about William, but we've got a bunch of guys we think that can reap the benefit of playing with good centermen. And if they're ready, we'll give them a chance. They're going to compete against each other. It's not my decision to make. It's going to be their game will dictate to us over the next little while. And then you've got flexibility on whether they stay, they play in the Barracuda, they go back to other options. There's World Juniors this year. There's a lot of experiential learning that we try to factor in what's the best thing for each individual player.
Any team, I might be wrong, but maybe that team just got drafted as a first roster since tomorrow.
That's a few years. Yeah, but you look around the league, right? And it's a different time, and these kids, the way they train and the experiences that they have, it's really between the ears. Like, I'll never forget when Logan came in and Pavs came in. You could just see that they think the game at such an advanced level that it's usually between the ears that enables them to play at a young age. And William is a really mature kid. How he processes things, how he sees the game is really impressive. We feel very fortunate to have got him in the draft this year. We do.
You had a pretty long run of being a contender in the conference now. Just reset the last couple of years. Is it just sort of in the cap world, or it's just hard maintaining it at that level? Is it difficult, or what is it just cycle? How do you see it?
Well, I think we can't say anything typical of last year. It's probably the most atypical year any of us have ever gone through. I think we knew there was going to come a time that the Thornton, Marlowe, Pavelski era was over. It was going to And then we knew that having guys like Logan and Tommy Hurdle and Timo Meyer coming underneath. But you also have to replenish. And we went many, many years without replenishing our system, using picks to add pieces or players to compete. So we committed last year, as Kevin said, we were not going to move our first round pick. Honestly, thank God we didn't because of how things worked out. But it was a commitment that we made. I shared it with our players because if you take a look around the league, the teams that have kind of reset their team, brought some veteran guys in, had some of the younger guys go, and look no further than what Montreal did last year. So it can be done, but you got to make sure you're humming on all cylinders. And so we knew that this type of phase was coming in at some point during our, this journey. We had a pretty good run for a long time. We had to replenish our system, and I think the quality kids that we've got coming in, it's up to us to develop them and make sure they max out with their game.
Are you disappointed with how Rocky left the team and the excitement from John?
We have such great respect for Rocky. We respect, the decision, and it's because of new league protocol that he wasn't able to fulfill his duty. But Rocky's a special guy. We're very fortunate. Boogie identified right away a group of guys that he thought might have the skill sets to come in, because that's an important role. And John McLean, former Shark, obviously was very familiar with much of our staff, will come in, I think, and help certainly in certain areas that will bring a fresh perspective. But nothing but really good things to say about Rocky. And again, it was difficult because it was one of those things out of everybody's control that you have a choice, and that's where it ended up. I talk to him every couple of days. We keep him updated through the whole process, and it's. I think he watched the games from the rookie tournament from streaming. So. I couldn't hear you because of the drill. Sorry.
What are his expectations for this team this year?
Same thing. I mean, we compete. We don't. One thing we don't accept is just saying, okay, we're going to rebuild and not win. It's. You could say you're resetting and competing during that. I've heard other teams say they're doing a competitive rebuild, which means you're trying to win and rebuild. It's semantics how you want to use it, but we are committed to integrating younger players when they're ready. You have veteran guys to come in, and if a young guy comes in and pushes somebody out from a spot, you got to have competition. And we think this is going to be a really competitive training camp. We do. You're going to have goaltenders competing. You're going to have who's the next Knishoff, and a bunch of forwards that are saying, they can all count, but give us the opportunity, and we'll see.
Other than the pool,
I've been battling this thing for about 3-4 weeks. I have this cough, but it's not anything serious. That's a good thing. But I'm excited about training camp. I tell you what, it's getting back to watch guys play hockey. When we went so long not seeing our young guys. I mean, you see the names, you see the guys, and then all of a sudden you don't get to watch them on the ice. The development camp and then the rookie tournament really kind of was the start to the year. We hadn't seen our staff. We hadn't had our staff together in a long period of time. So we can't wait to actually get started, and some level of normalcy we need to return to.